Hello, welcome to the Daily Stoic Conversation.
Hey, what's up? How's it going?
Today is July 14th.
Okay,
Okay, you ready for the title of this one?
I am ready.
A little knowledge is dangerous.
Yes. Okay. Are you pre-reading it?
I'm not pre-reading it. I was just contemplating how poignant the title feels.
So, how does it feel? Like, what does it right now mean to you before we actually read it?
That it's really easy to think that I know more than I do on like a given topic, or like assume that I can fill in the gaps of my knowledge or something, and then speak to other people as if I'm certain of this thing. And to like not be just like very, very forthcoming about here's like what I know or what I think I know from whatever sources I've gotten my information from, versus like this is an assumption I'm making. I'm mixing like information with assumptions, and it's not totally, I'm not always aware of like when I'm wavering back and forth from one to the other. And sometimes afterwards I'll be like, oh, I don't think I really know that. Like, I don't think I know that I could just say this with certainty, but yet I've said it with certainty already to this other person, you know?
Is there anything out there that you actually can say with certainty?
I knew you were gonna go here, but like,
I'm just asking if like, no, I'm not trying to like hint you onto something, but like I'm trying to see if like where is the line for you? Because I get it, like there is some
there's knowledge. There's we've learned certain things work and certain things don't work. We've put names to things out there. We've named every piece of the body. We've named every piece of a plant. We've named all of this stuff. These are like, it's sort of like a collective agreement of like, this is what I'm talking about when I point to something and like I say chair, and then we all know what a chair is. So I'm saying it's like the difference between that, like I know that like, hey, I've worked through this subject material, I've immersed myself in it, I'm credible to say with certainty the thing that I am now proclaiming with certainty. Versus a lot of times I'll hear a headline about something, I will just read an Instagram post about and I'll assume I know more than I do, and I'll start talking about it from this level that's like, it doesn't do me any good to talk about it at that level, and it doesn't do my listener any good to talk about it at that level.
When you're talking about it, when you find yourself talking about it, do you like of course if you probably knew about it, you would try to like not do that, right? So it's kind of, is it just like a learned mechanism that just happens and then you notice it maybe afterwards or something? Or?
I think it's probably pretty natural for human beings to want to come across as competent and credible and smart and intelligent. And so I think it's like probably a natural thing that we all have, that's like part of the ego's need to like stand out and be the best at something, you know? It's just like, and maybe what's fueling that underneath is like some insecurity about my worth or my values. I don't know what my values are. I don't know like how I'm trying to live my life, or anything could be fueling that insecurity, but there might be the insecurity under it that's causing me to then act as if I'm more certain than I am about some information.
So you know it. You sound like you know it now. You're like, yeah, I'm doing that, right?
Yeah,
But
and
when like
not all the time in the moment.
in the moment
Yeah.
is not.
That's what I'm
necessarily-
saying is like
yeah,
sometimes
yeah.
I will say something and then only after the fact I'll look back and say, holy, wait, I don't know enough to say that.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm feeling like if this is what, and I'm saying this without even having read like what they're talking about, so I could be taking us on a total tangent.
No,
but
that's okay. That's okay.
if that is what they're talking about, then this is why it feels poignant.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, the quote today is Epictetus. He says, "Every great power is dangerous for the beginner. You must therefore wield them as you are able, but in harmony with nature." Every great power is dangerous for the beginner. You must therefore wield them as you are able, but in harmony with nature.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like there's like this eagerness too. Like I like that he phrases it as every great power. Because sometimes knowledge, it feels very powerful. It feels like I'm going to go change the world with this. And there's this excitement and this eagerness that builds up when that new, that fresh, like, oh my gosh, this has been here. I could have known this whole time, but instead I just found it out right now.
And then you might even think that you're the only one who knows.
And wow, it just did this crazy thing
feels
for
so
my
special
life.
that you're the only one who
So now I want to
came
go
up with this brilliant idea or something.
I mean, sure. Normally I get like a lot of these knowledge ahas from other people, so it's obvious that this is like being passed amongst us. But yeah, it does feel powerful, and it feels like it's being fueled sometimes by this excited energy of now I want to go share it.
Mm-hmm. Now that I obtained this knowledge and I understand it, now I want to go share it. But we don't even know what we know or what we understand. If we even understand it, we might, like I said, we might understand only 20%, but it feels like 100%. And the excitement to go share it is 100%.
Right.
And now we're sharing something that we are not really.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not very confident in actually knowing it, and then that could cause disagreements. Of course, I can totally see that. Like somebody saying, like somebody then maybe knowing just a smidge a little more, they see that you might not understand.
Oh, it's so clear to them.
And now it's just like, no, that's not how it is. It's like this. And now the ego is like, well, I have to fight. I have to dig my heels in and stay my ground, right? Like, because that ego, like, I know,
Yeah.
right? So now you're in this, but you actually are like maybe in this pointless fight between 20 and 22% of the knowledge that can be obtained from it, or maybe much less.
I mean, I think if somebody has more knowledge, they just see through you and they're like, oh, I see where this person is. Like they're not getting wound up in a fight.
Well, I think that's a person who is like the, not just knowledgeable about the subject, but also about how things work in life, So it's not worth pointing out to someone that they are wrong or something.
Sure. I'm kind of feeling like the person that I would be getting into. So here's why it's bad for me to act like I know more than I do in a situation, because then I become very fragile to push back. Because the people who are pushing back on it don't know more than me. They're actually more beginners than I am. And it's something of what I'm saying is breaking something in their brain and their map of reality. Sure. And they don't know how to relate what I'm saying to their map. And so they're saying, well, no, because what about this? Or what about this? Or what about this?
So this is now, you're giving me a scenario of like, let's say, know 80% or 70%, and you're talking to people who know 10%, Is that what I'm hearing? Like, and then they are arguing with you. No, you don't understand. It's like this, but you see clearly through them that, like, you know, doing chaturangas, let's say, in yoga is not going to make you strong.
I'm not saying that I'm at 70%. No, I'm saying I'm at like 20%, and this other person is at like 2% or 3%.
Sure. Let's bring it all down.
It's much less sophisticated, because by the time I'm at 80% of a knowledge, I can have a much more sophisticated conversation with somebody.
Sure.
So like my point is that when I go to talk about it too soon, when my knowledge is just so tiny, and have this egotistical idea that like I know more than I do. I might think I know this 80%. I might be like, dude, I know this 80%. But like a true expert would look at me and be like, okay, you're in this delusional world of like wanting to.
Well, I mean, not delusional, but there's a scale to everything, right? So it's like I can see that somebody would be at 80% and they look it down 20%. It's like everybody at every level talks about it like they're at 100%, right?
Sure, yeah, and maybe you don't know how much more there's never really like I can reach the end
there is no
of
100%.
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
right.
It's an infinity situation there.
Yeah.
But my point is like when I think that I might even be in this phase of life. I think I'm getting to a phase in life where I like just don't want to talk about something until I've chewed on it a little bit more and I've like really thought it through and I've like investigated multiple pathways and like I've figured things out for myself. Because when I'm at that I know I'm at that 20% level, being all cocky about it, because when I talk about it to other people and they have like a different reality that they're bringing to me, I don't have the skills or the knowledge to help them bring them from where they are to like.
Because you're not an expert yet in it to be able to teach them, right? You're like, oh, I'm still learning. Like, I don't want to give you. I don't even know how to bring you to 12%.
Yeah, it's not like I don't want to. No, I would love to. I cannot do it. And then it makes me frustrated. And it makes me like, well, why don't they just get it? Like, why don't they just understand it?
I see. So you do want to help them to understand more, but you don't know how to. You don't have like a system.
Because I'm only 20% of the way in, let's say, to a set of knowledge and I'm feeling cocky about it. Like I know more than I do. And so it's actually creating confrontational conversations. And so that's what I've noticed, like why it's bad for me to do this is it creates a situation where I'm connecting with people on topics that I don't know enough about to like feel calm and confident and just like steady in myself. So I feel all amped up and like antsy about it. And it's like, wait, hold on. Like what if I like what he's saying, a little knowledge is dangerous. What if I say, I don't need to talk about the things I only have a little bit of knowledge on.
So
that's for me.
I see. So you're saying like your own, if you had 20% or 15% of where you want to be, you're saying it's better for you to actually not talk about it and like continue to process it internally and not really talk about it outside because it might be confusing for others to think, oh, she's then the expert or something like, or like, you know, like it's hard to fit into this thing. So your technique is to like, I'm going to process all this internally. Okay, cool.
Internally, yeah.
And you might talk about it, but maybe you're not talking about it
from the standpoint of
I know.
Yeah.
But it's more of like, maybe I question it, but we're talking about it in a way that we question, we are asking questions. Hey, and maybe when we hear something that is not correct, we could ask more questions about that because you say, well, I thought it was working like this, but you have some other knowledge. Like if we continuously do it that way, then we could do it out loud with others and process it that way versus just doing it the internal way. But it has to be these questions. It cannot be this coming from, well, I know this and I know that, and it has to come from, I don't know, I want to know more because I know that I only know 15%. So
right. And then when I get to that place of like, I don't know, I want to know more, I'm not then talking to necessarily a beginner about that unless that beginner shares that interest. I would be saying, I don't know, I want to know more, looking at someone who has that 70% or that 80% who can...
Or whoever you think that they have, who knows
funnels,
how they feel.
Right,
Yeah,
so I can, and so I'm directing the things I don't know that much about. I put myself in more of a learning mode with them, and I stop like trying to connect with other people on these topics that are kind of like I'm trying to show off or something, or like that's what it seems like maybe to other people.
And they might even ask you certain questions like, hey, how is that going? And now you're inclined, they invite you to come and tell us the things that you know.
Right. If someone is curious about curious about the 20% of what I know, 100%, absolutely. But it's just like removing the desire to even share that, because I'm now like seeing like, shit, I don't have good connections with people when I'm just sharing something I learned or I think that I know because I'm excited about it. And I'm coming from such an innocent place of like eagerness and wanting to connect. It just never creates the type of connection that feels good.
Yeah. I'm just kind of curious about like those differences in like I wonder if you approached it a little bit more from the like asking like I want to talk about it, because you do want to talk about it, right? Like you have internal like, no, I want to discuss this, but I don't want to discuss it from a standpoint that you guys all think that I know that I know something. No, I want to discuss it like I want to discuss it like I want to have this communication or interaction, but I want to be asking questions.
And that's why I'm saying I would be directing that towards someone who knows more, someone who can help me explore those questions with more nuance.
So you're saying questions are only for those who you think that they know more.
I'm like, or I know more, and like that's a lot of people, right? Like we go sailing with a therapist, and like then it's like, well, what did you train in? Like what I'm interested in this topic. I don't need to share with you everything that I've learned about psychology or therapy or anything like that. This is my chance, because I know like I'm at 20% of that whole thing. So it's like, hey, like you have this other piece of the pie. Like let me grab it. Let me shift how I'm talking, because 6 months ago or a year ago, I would have come to that situation and been like, well, she should know that I know things too.
Yeah, the validation, the need for validation that we belong, and we belong based on the information we have. We are able to store. And when we're able to store more, we get an A for that in the class, and we get a pat on the back. Good job. Right? That's the reinforcement of that. Like, me too. I want to share my things.
And that's why I'm saying it is this kind of innocent place, because it comes from the place of wanting to belong and connect and all of this. It's just, I've fallen on my face. I learned how to do that way, and then I keep falling on my face that way. And so, I mean, thank you for having this be the July 14th entry, essentially, because it's like one of those small little things that like makes a really big difference when I just practice it. And I'm not always, I'm starting where I'm starting. So it's like a little bit at a time. I was just happy to have that conversation, frankly, with that therapist on the sailboat that was the way that it was, because I know that 6 months ago I would have handled that situation differently.
You saw yourself doing the things you wanted it to do 6 months ago, like in the moment, like actually be actioning it. Through it, not realizing in midway of the conversation, oh shit, I'm doing the same old thing. I'm trying to talk about me. Now I gotta make this more about, I'm interested in you, right?
And there's something in it for me, because I'm learning and I'm sponging, and now maybe today I'm moving from 20% to 20.5%. What?
Yeah, nice. What do you think? You wanna see what the next chapter is there?
Thank you for listening, my baby.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so Ryan says, great teachers are usually hardest on their most promising students. When teachers see potential, they want it to be fully realized. But great teachers are also aware that natural ability and quick comprehension can be quite dangerous to the student if left alone. Early promise can lead to overconfidence and create bad habits. Those who pick things up quickly are notorious for skipping the basic lessons and ignoring the fundamentals. Don't get carried away. Take it slow. Train with humility. And this is like so for me because I do pick things up pretty quickly, except for when I don't, and then like snowboarding, and then it just feels like I'm never gonna fucking get this. But like if I think back to grade school and picking up the flute, I took to the instrument like very fast, like faster than the other kids, and like reading music was easy for me. But I was so fast to like just like learn it the way that I figured out how to learn it, that by the time I got to high school, everybody was talking about tonguing, like when you're blowing into the instrument and you tongue between the notes. And I was like, wait, you're using your tongue to separate the notes, the airflow for the notes? Because I was like, I literally stop blowing to separate the notes. It's like that's how I'm fake tonguing essentially. But I was like 15 when I figured this out, and everybody thinks I'm a really great flute player, but I feel like a sham because I'm not like playing the instrument the right way. And I know that like when it gets harder and the notes get faster, the only way to do it is to tongue. So I'm like, I know I can only get to a certain point before I have to like basically admit.
Face it or face to learn how to do it the other way, so you can continue the progress.
Do you know what? The flute mostly faded out of my life. I still to this day do not know how to tongue.
Well, there's plenty of time to learn.
It feels weird to say this out loud because like it's not like the most embarrassing thing, but like I literally don't think I ever just admitted this.
I've learned only like maybe 6 months ago about like alternate picking.
Yeah.
And I've heard alternate picking, and I'm thinking alternate picking was like skipping skipping the note, skipping the other, and I go like, well, yeah, I'm doing that already. Like this is how I took the knowledge of I already know what that is based on what I heard, and I imagined that it's skipping the every other string, but still using your pick. But alternate picking means using your pick with here, and then you're using this finger to pluck the other string. And I've never practiced it because I was under the impression that alternate picking was the skipping of this thing, and I was practicing, and I'm pretty okay with that. But then seriously, this is 25, 30 years into playing guitar and like learning from videos, and like how did I miss that? Right? And all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, it's here, and I see fingers, and I see and then there's you don't see it because it's so hidden or something, right? And it's I don't know, it's just, there's so I was also like, wait, what? Like, how did I miss this? Like, and now I have to learn it because now I'm like, well, shoot, like I want to know how to do that technique now, right? And now I'm learning it, and it feels like I'm playing the guitar for the very first time with that finger and with all of that thing down here. It feels like, oh God, this is like going back to step 3 or something from step 25, you know what I mean? But it's good. It's good. Like I'm developing a callus over here from it, right? And so I'm going through that process, and I'm like, okay, that's hard, but I keep doing it, keep plucking it, right? And it's like, yeah, so I can't go around it. It will catch me, and I have to learn it. So that's what reminded me of the flute technique, yeah.
And all of that kind of, I don't know, I think there's some ways that you could just, however the knowledge flows through your training, you just somehow for 20 years never came across this, or who knows, like how it is. It's and what I'm taking from this is like, I just have to be like less I don't know if the cocky is the word or like certain is the word, but just like there is something that feels really good about being in like a beginner state of mind, like that openness to receive. And like then the more that I learn, the more closed it gets, and the more I think I know things. And
like that's what I was saying, like I enjoyed creating that callus, because it's like, why I never had callus here and now I have to do it. It's
and it's enjoyable.
It's enjoyable.
Once I kick myself off the horse, like that's the part that hurts. The part that hurts is like, now I have to admit to myself that I'm not as hot shit as I thought that I was. That's the part that hurts. But then the part after that of like going back to the beginner thing is like, it feels so good and so refreshing. And I feel like what I'm hearing him say is like approaching my life, my conversations with other people, what I choose to say, and also like what you and I were talking about like reframing it more to the curiosity, to the question side of things. So it's less about sharing information with people as it is like almost creating a space where more information can come to me.
Yeah. It's funny because I just shared that story with the plucking, and that was me kind of wanting to share my story about what your story did. So it's even happening here in some fashion, right? It's like, but I'm like, well, but I wanted to connect with it, right? So there's this like, but no, it's okay. You just wanted to connect, but like, you can do that, but make sure you know that you're talking about yourself, right? Or, I'm looking at it that way, right? Like internally, I say to myself, like, hey, it's okay to share this, but this is about the Brenty story, what she was talking about. Even though I'm kind of seeing similarity, and I see the excitement of I want to share too, right? It's like maybe, right? So there's this thing, and so. But then I go, no, bring it back to where it was, back to what we were talking about. So it's a tangent that I'm trying to look back really quickly. Yeah. If I go on it, because it's also surprising to me sometimes. I'm like, oh my God, that story is so like the way it connected in my head, your story and my story about the tonguing and plucking, like that. I'm like, oh my God, that's the same. Like that's the same, right? And then that's the excitement of like, that's so similar, and like I want to share this similarity thing with you, like because that's where we can connect. Look how similar we are. Look how same we are. Look how one we are.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I wasn't taking that scenario as like an example of that, because I think it's like also very vulnerable to just be like, hey, like here's an example of like where I had to like face the music on this situation. Yeah. And so that doesn't feel like it's driven by that same thing of like, let me show you what I know. No. It feels more like, hey, like...
It's actually hard to be vulnerable, right?
Yeah, exactly. So...
And not only sharing it with like one person here, but also sharing it with, the watchers of all of this. Like that's also like another level of strength to want to share vulnerability like that, So thanks for sharing.
You too, my baby. All right, let's wrap it up.
Cool. That was a long one.
Ooh, I got this tennis ball in my shin right now. It feels so good. All right, thank you for joining today, and let us know your thoughts and feelings in the comments below, and we will see you tomorrow.